Hello, my friends. Today there is a lot of great news for Ukraine. What's happening now is bringing Ukraine closer to success. And as for Russia, it looks like the end is near. Let's start with this. Trump has long said that if Russia doesn't agree to a ceasefire, he'll provide powerful support to the Ukrainians to defeat the Russians. And it seems like that moment has come. Trump is reportedly using his presidential powers for the first time to send weapons to Ukraine. According to reports, the US president plans to provide Ukraine with weapons from US stockpiles worth around $300 million. This would be the first time he's invoking the Emergency Drawdown Authority, a presidential authorization to rapidly transfer weapons since returning to office. The move would allow the quick delivery of weapons, including Patriot missiles. A final decision on the full list of equipment is expected soon. Over $3.5 billion will be available through this program. The last time Biden used it was in January, when a $500 million aid package was sent. Zelensky also announced that US aid will start flowing to Ukraine again.
What's important is that, after very constructive and positive talks with President Trump, we now have all the necessary political signals confirming the resumption of military aid. Our teams are now working together to ensure that everything arrives in Ukraine on time, and that's something we've agreed on. We also discussed with our partners the possibility of purchasing additional weapons packages, both in Europe and the US. We've already provided detailed information about this package to our friends and hope for their support, particularly when it comes to our defense systems and Patriot missiles. We're also talking about Patriot systems and other platforms, including artillery and other weapons that will strengthen the Ukrainian army.
In addition, Zelensky announced that Germany is ready to provide Ukraine with additional Patriot systems.
Germany has expressed readiness to help with additional Patriot systems, and we are currently in talks about that. Thank you.
And after the negotiations with Trump, it's no longer just about 10 missiles, as previously stated, but about 10 full Patriot systems.
We're having a positive dialogue with President Trump regarding the Patriot systems. I made a request for 10 Patriot systems and the appropriate number of missiles for them. Germany is ready to pay for 2 of those systems. I have agreements with them. Norway is ready to pay for 1. I have bilateral agreements with the Prime Minister there. Once we receive a clear response from the manufacturer and from various available options in the United States, specifically on delivery dates, other European partners will definitely join in. We understand the cost, of course. This is the current funding scheme for the American Patriot systems.
Friends, this is already a small victory. Our partners are once again giving Ukraine their full support, and today we're witnessing a real turning point, one that could seriously impact the situation on the front lines. But for now, Putin is continuing the war. And Zelensky also stated that, according to intelligence, Russia has no plans to stop the war.
Our intelligence has full information that Russia will continue dragging out this war. Putin is rejecting every opportunity to establish a real ceasefire. He doesn't want a genuine peace. Putin is addicted to war, and the only way to make him break that addiction is through real force. That's why our defense in Ukraine must be strong enough. Most of our recent meetings have been dedicated to making sure global sanctions against Russia are strong enough. And those sanctions must also target everyone who is actually helping Russia.
So, now let's briefly go over the situation on the front line. We'll start with the Pokrovsk direction, where the situation is the most difficult. We hope that the arrival of HIMARS missiles, which will most likely be sent urgently, will lead to the destruction of Russian ammunition depots and bases in the area, which could stop the Russian advance in the Pokrovsk sector. But for now, the Russians continue storming Razine, Новоторецьке, Володимирівка, Новоекономічне, Миролюбівка, Промінь Village, Лисівка, the outskirts of Pokrovsk, Удачне, Новопідгороднє and advancing near Котлине and Новосергіївка. The activity is extremely high, nearly 70 assaults in a single day. Drone activity is also at its peak. Yesterday, the Russians launched many drone strikes on Pokrovsk with multiple fires reported, and by evening, new strikes hit Dobropilla. This time, not by drones, but by airstrikes. What we are seeing in Dobropilla, a massive drone attack, may be part of Russia's testing of new drone strike technologies. In the Novopavlivka direction, the Russians are assaulting Horihove, pushing through near Oleksiivka, attacking Dachne, advancing toward Filia, near Yalta, and assaulting Myrne. However, there have been no territorial changes in the past 24 hours, and the reported capture of the village of Tolstoy by Russian forces is not confirmed. In the Velika Novosilka direction, the Russians continue the attacks around the village of Shevchenko, assaulting Vilne Pole, and attempting to break through near Zelene Pole. But here, too, Ukrainian forces have managed to repel all attacks, and there have been no changes in the front line. In the Gulay-Pole direction, the situation remains stable. The Russians are not launching new assaults on Malinivka, and the front line remains unchanged. In the Zaporizhia direction, Russian forces continue the attacks on Novodanilivka and are carrying out heavy shelling around the village of Kamensk, but there have been no changes along the front line in this area either. In the Kherson direction, Russian forces continue the attempts to advance on the islands, but haven't achieved any success, and all attacks are being repelled. At the same time, artillery strikes and FPV drone activity on the right bank remain highly active. Now let's move to the Konstantinivka direction. Here, the Russians are assaulting Chasiv Yar, Предтечене, and attempting to advance toward Bila Gora. And they are also storming Delivka, Pleshiivka, Щербинівка, Rusin Yar, Poltavka, and Popiev Yar. However, we can say that the Ukrainian forces have managed to stop Russia's advance. Despite the difficult situation, the front line has remained stable for quite some time, and the Russians are no longer able to move forward to encircle Konstantinivka. In the Siversk direction, Russian forces are assaulting Serebryanka and trying to push through near Verkhnyo-Kamensk and Vyimka. However, all attacks have been repelled by the Ukrainian forces, and the front line remains unchanged just as before. In the Liman direction, the level of activity is very high, 30 assaults in the past 24 hours. The Russians are attempting to storm Зарічне, Колодязі, Зелена Долина, and the village of Середнє, and are pushing near Karpivka and Глушенкове, as well as storming Новий Мир and Дружелюбівка. However, they've made no gains, and their front line remains stable here as well. In the Borova direction, Russian forces haven't launched any new assaults, and all previous attempts were unsuccessful for them. In the Kupiansk direction, the Russians are attacking Redkivka and Novosinove and also trying to push forward from Stepova Novoselivka. However, they are unable to advance toward encircling Kupiansk, and the front line hasn't changed for the past 24 hours. In the Dvorichna direction, attacks continue around Petro-Ivanivka, Krasne Pershe, and Kamyanka. However, the Ukrainian forces are successfully repelling all assaults, and despite constant activity along the front line, the situation remains unchanged. In the Veliki Burluk direction, attacks on Ambarne are ongoing, and Odradne is under shelling, an area where the Russians may attempt to advance in the near future. Still, they've made no new gains, and the Ukrainian forces continue to successfully hold their positions. In the Kharkiv direction, the Russians are assaulting Liptsi, but the Ukrainian forces are defeating them before they reach the town, and the Russians haven't been able to enter the settlement. In the Zelena area, all attacks have stopped for now, and the front line remains unchanged for the past day. Fighting continues in Vovchansk, but Russia has had no success there, only daily losses. In the Sumy direction, attacks continue near Kindrativka, Andriivka, Oleksiivka, and Yunakivka. The Russians are also trying to break through the border, but so far they have had no success anywhere, and all attacks are being repelled. And Zelensky said that finally everyone understands that Russia never wanted peace.
Remember, just a year ago many people thought Russia wanted real peace, real negotiations, and a ceasefire. Moscow was sending those signals, and it was all part of their propaganda, trying to say that Ukraine didn't want peace. But back then, we said that pressure had to be put on Russia because it was not preparing for peace. Now everyone sees that Putin rejects all peace proposals and is escalating violence.
Despite recent reports that the US halted its Ukraine reconstruction program, today the US Treasury Secretary stated the opposite. It seems plans have changed and Trump will lead the Ukraine Recovery Fund. Scott Bessent, who participated via video at the Ukraine Recovery Conference in Rome, presented the Reconstruction Investment Fund, aiming to mobilize American companies, resources, and experts to rebuild Ukraine. According to him, the fund was created on the initiative of US President Donald Trump. Through rational macroeconomic management and strong foreign investments, Ukraine's economic future will be much stronger than its past. The Reconstruction Investment Fund is the key to unlocking this abundant future. He added that the US will work to ensure that no individual, country, or company that finances or supplies the Russian military machine benefits from Ukraine's reconstruction. Zelensky also said that after the full scale invasion, Ukraine will need a full scale recovery.
Today we talked about the need for a clear, systematic reconstruction plan. We all remember the importance of the Marshall Plan. We need a significant, large-scale recovery. After this full-scale aggression, a full-scale reconstruction is required. We are preparing for this and will be very active in developing and implementing the recovery plan.
The German chancellor also made strong statements in support of Ukraine. Friedrich Merz, in his speech at the Rome conference, called on Trump to side with Ukraine in the war against Putin. He also welcomed the launch of a European fund aimed at mobilizing private investments for Ukraine's recovery, noting that the huge costs of rebuilding cannot be covered solely by public funds. He said that another factor that will turn Ukraine's recovery into an economic miracle is the country's accession to the European Union. Merz used his speech to urge Slovakia not to veto the 18th package of sanctions against Russia and sent messages to Putin and Donald Trump. In conclusion, I have two messages. One to Moscow and Putin. The message is simple: we will not give up. My second message is to Washington and President Donald Trump: stay with us and stay with the Europeans. We are on the same wavelength and are seeking a stable political order in this world. Zelensky also said that even if Russia launches up to 1,000 Shahed drones over Ukraine, they will be shot down.
They have a plan for 700 to 1,000 drones per day. Now, if our partners hear everything I've discussed with them, we will shoot them all down. We have solutions interceptor drones that take them down. Not all, but almost all, definitely most. We will be able to mass produce them and speed up financing for these processes. The key has been found.
Overall, we wait to see how events unfold. Do you believe the situation will change, and with US military support, will the front at least stop advancing? Be sure to share your thoughts in the comments. And that's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching and see you next time. Bye bye.